Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. Well, as stated in yesterday's video, it was just a matter of time. Kevin McCarthy was eventually going to clinch the speakership role. Is it ideal? Probably not. Is it the end of the world? Is it the worst thing ever? Probably not either. But it's certainly not as bad as it could have been. And that, I think, has to be the story. The Democrat media is focused on all kinds of nonsense. They're crafting their narrative. I've spoken to a bunch of different people in my personal life who have asked me what's going on with the whole Kevin McCarthy thing. It seems so dysfunctional, the media is making a big deal about it, but when I explain to them that it's just a healthy debate and we're seeing conservative representatives finally actually stand up for their constituents, challenging the Republican old guard rather than kissing the ring and co-signing anything that the neocons want, when I explain to them that it's just democracy at work, it's a healthy, good thing, most people seem to get it. I said something a couple seconds ago very purposely. It's not best case scenario, but it's certainly not as bad as it could have been. In fact, it might end up being quite productive, specifically because of those 20 brave Republican GOP holdouts. At the end of the day, those 20 Republicans, in my opinion, should be considered heroes because they achieved something that we haven't seen in 100 years, since 1923. And the end result of their heroism, their courage to stand up and do the right thing, is a whole lot of good. Let me show you guys exactly what I mean. Let me show you guys exactly why it was so important for these 20 Republicans to stand up and fight. We got some stuff to get into, so let's roll the tape. Alright folks, so take a look at this from the Daily Mail. Kevin McCarthy's concessions that won him a pocket full of votes, but could give him a giant headache if he becomes speaker. Kevin McCarthy's concessions to a group of arch conservatives has won him 15 votes and maybe counting, while also likely ensuring future headaches, floor fights, Senate clashes, and perhaps even a crisis over whether the US goes into default. The final concessions that Kevin McCarthy negotiated were enough to bring over a group of fellow elected lawmakers who had voted against him repeatedly on 12 successive votes amid the prolonged televised spectacle. They got nearly everything that they asked for, beyond subcommittee gavels that other members of the conference rejected as an unfair boost, although McCarthy still wasn't able to prevail on his 13th vote to elect him as speaker. But here are the concessions. Rules Committee representation. Members of the conservative House Freedom Caucus got commitments to be added to the rules panel. The committee exerts tremendous power by setting the terms of the debate, but usually operates as a tool of the speaker. It traditionally has a 9-to-4 ratio, so the majority never loses. With more representation, the conservatives will be able to help allow for floor amendments on policy issues and messaging opportunities, from abortion to government spending. The second concession, single members can vote to, quote, vacate the chair. If McCarthy thought overcoming a band of holdouts was tough this week, things could get even harder if he becomes speaker. A single member would get to move to vacate the chair. This reverts prior procedure, which Freedom Caucus to threaten former Speaker John Boehner. McCarthy had already agreed to a 5-vote requirement to make the motion, which sets up essentially a vote of no confidence in the speaker, and agreed to lower it to a single lawmaker. A single lawmaker can now call for a vote of no confidence against the Speaker of the House. Hard line on debt limit. McCarthy has agreed to take a hard line on increasing the statutory debt limit, which Congress must lift to accommodate spending that it has agreed to through appropriations. Lawmakers weren't direct about the exact deal, but one of the holdouts who flipped, Representative Ralph Norman, had demanded a very tough line. Is he willing to shut down the government rather than raise the debt ceiling? That's a non-negotiable item, Norman said before switching back to McCarthy. Votes on term limits and border security. The holdouts reportedly got a pledge to get floor votes on term limits and border security. The former in particular could drive a wedge through the conference. McCarthy himself was elected to the House in 2006. This legislation would likely die in the Senate, where they would be subjected to a filibuster. Open primaries. The Conservative Leadership Fund, a PAC backed by McCarthy, brokered a deal with the Club for Growth that will impact Republicans that join the House in the future. The CLF committed to stay out of open primaries when a lawmaker vacates a seat. That gives arch conservatives a chance to prevail in a primary without getting pounded by leadership, which sometimes weighs in on behalf of candidates deemed more electable. This is a huge change, especially knowing Kevin McCarthy and Mitch McConnell's track record over the last 2 elections. Next up, we have appropriations. McCarthy reportedly agreed to allow open rules on spending measures, which could lead to lengthy debates and efforts to zero out funding for programs unpopular with Republicans. But the votes can also give Democrats weapons to use in campaign ads Republicans and may split GOP appropriators from Freedom Caucus members. According to Politico, the deal includes a commitment to bring up standalone appropriation bills. Conservatives loathe the omnibus bill that wrap multiple spending bills together when shutdowns loom. Passing individual bills is something both parties routinely try and fail to do by the end of the fiscal year. Discretionary spending cap. Another concession is a cap on discretionary spending, CNN reported, although spending levels are usually negotiated by both chambers and get influenced by the president's budget requests. Weaponization of DOJ and Select Committee on CCP. Republicans are girding to take on the Biden administration, and the rebels forced a commitment to set up a committee on the weaponization of the government. The idea had been floated as a subcommittee on the House Judiciary Committee. Its exact structure and membership was uncertain. According to the House Rules Package leaders prepared, the procedure creates a select subcommittee on the weaponization of the federal government as a select investigative subcommittee of the Committee on the Judiciary. It also creates a select committee on the strategic competition between the United States and the Chinese Communist Party. And so these are decent concessions. And listen, none of this would have happened without those 20 Republican holdouts. The media is going to try to paint this picture as if Kevin McCarthy's the winner here, but he's not. The Freedom Caucus is roughly 40 members in the House. That's a significant amount of leverage, and they use that leverage to achieve historic concessions ahead of the House leadership change. Commitments on the debt ceiling, votes on term limits and border security, an investigative committee focused on the weaponization of the DOJ and other federal agencies. McCarthy has also been forced to agree to lengthy debates before spending bills, and supposedly a deal that includes commitment to bring up standalone appropriation bills. So hopefully less massive bills right before the final deadline, like the $1.7 trillion 4,000-page omnibus bill that just passed right before the holidays that Democrats voted on, and even some Republicans voted on, and nobody even read the damn bill. I mean, here's proof. Here's Democrat Senator Chris Coons even admitting that he doesn't even know what's in the bill.
I get to go home, and you really put a lot of stuff in it at the last minute, whether it's earmarks or whatever. 1.6 trillion, what, 4 trillion over the last 2 years, and 31 trillion now we owe. Is this all okay, Senator? Do you ever look at it and say, we've overdone it?
Well, Joe, I voted for the omnibus, and I'm proud to support it. I understand that I'm responsible, and so is my colleagues, the congressional delegation, for the congressionally directed spending for Delaware. But I don't know exactly what every other member of the Senate has put in the bill.
There is a lot, and I mean a lot, to be positive of here, friends. What we saw was a healthy, rigorous challenge to the GOP status quo, and it netted results. The end result was probably never going to be someone replacing Kevin McCarthy as leader. I mean, for Pete's sakes, the two people that were being promoted as leader didn't even want the job. Jim Jordan's and Byron Daniels, both explicitly on the record, have stated that they don't even want to be the Speaker of the House. The end result was probably always going to be Kevin McCarthy. But at least we got best case scenario Kevin McCarthy, or at least close to best case scenario. McCarthy has committed to various concessions, and if he doesn't follow through, well, it's going to be real bad for him. Let's just leave it at that. Not to mention, any Republican member can call for a vote of no confidence as a sole detractor. So we'll just have to see. Kevin McCarthy's talking a decent game right now.
We will hold the swamp accountable. From the withdrawal of Afghanistan to the origins and to the weaponization of the FBI. Let me be very clear. We will use the power of the purse and the power of the subpoena to get the job done.
It's hard to tell whether he's genuine, whether he's to be trusted, but given the current circumstance, you have to give him the benefit of the doubt, while holding him accountable for every single decision and every single bill, every single vote. But I guess in conclusion, to wrap up the video here, what those 20 Freedom Caucus members did was truly historic, was beautiful, was brave, courageous. They achieved a whole lot for their constituents, and that right there should be the story. You know, Donald Trump's Truth Social post from a couple days ago where he said, "Take the win and run." Well, I don't think just the shift from Nancy Pelosi to Kevin McCarthy was enough of a win, was successful enough. Not only is Nancy Pelosi now fired, but in the shift of leadership in the House, much more was accomplished through the courageous actions of Republican representatives. So it's really a double win. It's better than it would have been had they chose to just sit back and do nothing, and just bend the knee to the power of the RNC. That's the real narrative, and screw whatever the left-wing mainstream media is saying. That's what I got for you guys. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, make sure to leave a like and possibly subscribe to the channel if you guys are up for it. I'm gonna get out of here. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.